Pnawn da unwaith eto a chroeso cynnes i chi gyd i lansiad Comisiwn Cymdeithion. Mae'r Comisiwn yn deillio'n llythyr cylch gwaith gan y cynweinidog addysg Kirsty Williams sy'n datgan y dylai'r Academi Arweinyddiaeth gweithredu fel arweinydd meddwl trwy ddatblygu, egluro a gweithredu gweledigaeth a strategaeth ar gyfer arweinyddiaeth addysgol yng Nghymru. A gwneud hynny trwy gyfleu a lliwio polisi, strategaeth a datblygiad arweinyddiaeth, gan gynnwys mynd i'r afael a datblygu arweinyddiaeth yn seiliedig ar yr agenda Cymraeg mewn addysg, mwyn sicrhau bod arweinwyr ym mhob ysgol yn meddu ar y sgiliau i gynllunio datblygiad sgiliau iaith Gymraeg pob dysgwr ac ymarferwr mewn modd strategol ac i hybu datblygiad ethos a diwylliant Cymraeg yn yr ysgol. Arweiniodd hwn at gwestiwn y Comisiwn ar gyfer Carfan 2, sef beth yw'r rôl arweinyddiaeth addysgol wrth wireddu gweledigaeth Cymru o ddiwylliant bywiog ac iaith Gymraeg ffyniannus. Mae'r Cymdeithion wedi treulio y 2 flynedd ddiwethaf yn casglu a chrynhoi eu tystiolaeth gan gynnwys ymweliadau tramor ac rydym yn ddiolchgar i'n gwledydd llety am y croeso a'r cefnogaeth. Diolch arbennig i Iasone Aldecoa o Wlad y Basg ac i Richard Bawel o Ottawa, ac rydym yn falch iawn o gael presenoldeb Richard gyda ni heddiw. Croeso i ti, Richard. Rwy'n ddiolchgar iawn hefyd i bawb sydd wedi cyfrannu i'r Comisiwn yma yng Nghymru, ond yn bennaf i bob un o'r cymdeithion am ei gwaith diwyd yn enwedig yn ystod y flwyddyn ddiwethaf wrth mynd i'r afael a'r Comisiwn yn ogystal ag arwain ei ysgolion trwy'r cyfnod pandemig. Rwyf am drosglwyddo'r awennau nawr i Trevor Jones, cydymaeth Carfan 2, i olrhain ychydig bach mwy o waith y Comisiwn gyda chi. Diolch, Trevor.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Tegwen, gwerthfawrogi yn fawr y cyflwyniad hynny a awyddus hefyd i ategu fy nghroeso cynnes i ar ran Cymdeithion Carfan 2 i'r lawnsiad yma heno. Braf iawn i gweld gymaint ohonoch chi wedi ymuno gyda ni. Nid yn unig i ni allu cyflwyno yr gweithredoedd sgennyn ni i chi heno, ond hefyd yn cael y cyfle i cychwyn y proses o wrando, trafod a cydweithio ar gyfer ddatblygu yn y maes arbennig pwysig yma ar gyfer y dyfodol. A mae'r maes hynny, mae'r Comisiwn wedi cael ei osod ar y sgrin o'ch blaen chi. Cwestiwn mawr, cwestiwn bwysig, a cwestiwn sydd wir angen ystyriaeth pellach. A dyn ni fel Carfan y Gymdeithion wirioneddol wedi ystyried o'n fraint i allu gwneud y gwaith pwysig yma dros y cyfnod o 2 flynedd dwytha. Felly, yn gyntaf, pwy ydy'r Cymdeithion? Wel, dyna i chi llun o'r Cymdeithion yn gynnar iawn yn cyfnod ni yn cychwyn gyda'r Academi Arweinyddiaeth. Fyddwch chi'n adnabod un hwyrach sydd ddim yn un o'r Carfan Cymdeithion yn y fan yna, ond dwi yn hynod ffodus o galw'r pobl yma yn gydweithwyr ac yn bwysicach o hynny yn ffrindiau yn deillio o'r gwaith yma sydd wedi digwydd dros y cyfnod o 2 flynedd. Felly, sut wnaethon ni gyrraedd gweithredoedd sydd wedi cael eu gyflwyno yn yr Comisiwn heddiw? Mi gychwynnodd hynny nôl yng Ngwbert yn Mawrth 2019 pan dderbynwyd y cwestiwn Comisiwn ac o'r fan yna yn cychwyn ar y gwaith ymchwil. Llawer iawn o graffu ar ddogfennau, llawer iawn o gyfweliadau, llawer iawn o gyfarfodydd a trafodaethau anffurfiol gyda nifer fawr o bobl yn y wlad yma, ond hefyd yn rhyngwladol. Ac yn awyddus ar y pwynt yma, i ddiolch yn fawr iawn i bawb oedd mor parod o'i amser mwyn gallu trafod a datblygu yn meddyliau ni yn y maes yma. Ac wrth gwrs, o'r fan yna wedyn, Covid yn taro, ysgolion yn gorfod gweddnewid i gweithdrefnau, ac hynny wrth gwrs wedi creu cryn dipyn o her i ni wedyn, ond a'n gallu parhau gyda'r gwaith yma. Ond dyna wnaethon ni ar y pwynt hynny, a mi wnaethon ni rhannu ar y pwynt hynny dogfen datblygu meddwl gyda nifer o fewn yr proffesiwn addysg yng Nghymru mwyn cychwyn ar y trafodaeth hynny ynglyn â sut oedden ni'n mynd i symud ymlaen. Ac o'r fan yna, Medi tan Ionawr, mi wnaethon ni symud at yr adroddiad terfynol. Mae'r adroddiad hynny wedi bod trwy sesiwn panel craffu. Ac mi oedd y sesiwn hynny'n arbennig o bwysig i ni mwyn mynd ati i brofi'r hyn oedd gennym ni i ddeud. Ac hynny wrth gwrs wedyn wedi cael ei addasu rhywfaint yn dilyn adlewyrchu ar y pwynt hynny. A dyma ni wedi cyrraedd heddiw, mis Gorffennaf, ar adroddiad terfynol ar waith. Ond dydy'r proses ddim yn cychwyn yn y fan yna. Ond mwy o hynny, hwyrach mlaen yn ystod y lawtiad. Sy'r adroddiad ei hun, y Comisiwn. Mae o'n glasbrint cadarnhaol ac adeiladol ar gyfer gweithredu. Mi oeddwn ni'n teimlo'n gryf iawn ac yn angerddol fel grŵp o'n cymdeithion bod ni eisiau i hwn fod yn ddogfen yn gomisiwn oedd yn cynnig ffordd ymlaen. Ffordd cadarnhaol, positif, adeiladol yn mynd i alluogi hynny ddigwydd. Mi wnaethon ni bwynt o benderfynu bod angen targedu'r comisiwn yma tuag at lunwyr polisi a partneriad haenganol. Dydy hynny ddim yn golygu bod arweinwyr ysgolion a sefydliadau addysgiadol yn camu nôl o'r gwaith pwysig yma. Be da ni'n ceisio dweud ydy mae'r gwaith yn cychwyn ar y pwynt hynny mwyn sicrhau fod yr dyfodol a'r camau sydd angen yn llawer iawn cliriach ac yn fwy cyson o ran symud ymlaen. A dyn ni fel arweinwyr ysgolion a sefydliadau addysg yn awyddus i gydweithio ar hynny. Dyn ni yn gryf iawn yn barn bod yr comisiwn yma yn cynrychioli llais y proffesiwn ar draws y genedl. Dyn ni wedi gweithio'n galed i dderbyn sylwadau adborth a teimladau gan arweinwyr ar draws Cymru i weld os mae dyma yw'r gwir teimlad a dyn ni o'r farn i fod o. Ac wrth gwrs hefyd mae o'n adroddiad interactif mwyn sicrhau bod pobl yn gallu mynd nôl a nôl ato fo mwyn darllen pytiau ac i gymryd ymlaen o ran y camau nesaf. Felly, beth ydy'r gweithrediadau? Beth ydy y pethau dyn ni'n awyddus i weld yn digwydd? Y cam gweithredu cyntaf ydy bod ni'n datblygu dull cenedlaethol ar gyfer y Gymraeg mewn addysg gyda chyd-dealltwriaeth o'r uchelgais cenedlaethol ar gyfer yr iaith Gymraeg yn holl ysgolion Cymru. A hynny cynnwys camau cynnydd, eglurdeb y ddrwg iawn gynnau ar gamau cynnydd yn fframwaith y cwricwlwm, ysgolion yn deall y nod o weld bod pob disgybl yn gallu gwneud defnydd ymarferol o'r Gymraeg erbyn iddynt adael yr ysgol. A sut beth fyddai hynny a sut bydden nhw'n cymryd y pwynt hwnnw, cyrraedd y pwynt hwnnw. Ac yn ola, rôl y dull genedlaethol ar gyfer y Gymraeg mewn addysg mewn unrhyw eteriad o'r genhadaeth genedlaethol yn y dyfodol. Felly, beth ydy'r canlyniadau allweddol dyn ni'n rhagweld byddai'n deillio o'r cam gweithredu yma? Hefyd fanwl tro pob un brawddeg, yn glir beth da ni'n gofyn ydy bod yna gysondeb a chyfegni o ran y strategaeth hynny o ran symud ymlaen. Bod y strategaeth ar lefel cenedlaethol yn glir a bod pawb wedyn yn gweithio o'r un strategaeth wrth i ni symud ymlaen. Ac yr ail gweithred, galluogi gwireddu'r cwricwlwm yn holl ysgolion Cymru mwyn cryfhau darpariaeth a thwf yr iaith Gymraeg ac yn ail dyfnhau'r wybodaeth am ddiwylliant, treftadaeth a hunaniaeth Cymru yn ogystal a dyfnhau'r profiad a'r dealltwriaeth o'r elfennau hynny. Unwaith eto, cyfeirio at ganlyniadau allweddol yn y fan yna, a mi welwch chi unwaith eto y thema sydd yn datblygu'n glir iawn ydy cysondeb a thrawsegni o ran yr hyn sydd yn digwydd yn y meysydd hynny. Felly, dyna ddigon gyda i o ran y comisiwn ei hun. Dwi yn falch iawn rwan o gael y cyfle i gyflwyno Kevin Palmer i chi. Kevin Palmer yn is-gyfarwyddwr pedagogiaeth, arweinyddiaeth a dysgu proffesiynol yn Llywodraeth Cymru, awyddus iawn i groesawu ynte ymlaen i cyflwyno i adlewyrchiadau cychwynnol mewn perthynas â'r lawnsiad. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi.
Thanks very much, Trevor. I've just got 5 minutes, and if you don't mind, with that 5 minutes, I'll do exactly what Trevor's just invited me to do, which is give you some reflections from Welsh Government on the report. I want to say thanks, first of all, to the team for doing the work. I was interviewed very early in the process, and then again when the report was in draft. So I've had the good fortune to be able to look at some of it and have a little bit of thinking time, which is always useful. And also just to, I guess, reiterate the point that Trevor made about the role of the associates. You know, I've always talked to Tegwin about the associates representing the voice of leadership and the Academy representing the voice of leadership in talking to us in Welsh Government and in talking to other parts of the system. And clearly in this commission, they've done that very clearly. So just a few reflections then, maybe just a half a dozen. And the first is to say what an important moment I think it is for this report to come out. And by that, I mean, there are 3 new things in the system. I'll come on to some of the things you know, but these may be things that you're less familiar with. And the 3 new things that are in the system are the new programme for government. And in that programme for government, Welsh and Welsh in education is of specific significance. And the other 2 new things are people. So we have a new minister who's made it very publicly clear that as the Minister for Education and the Welsh language is a significant ministerial priority. And we've got a new director. So colleagues who said goodbye to Steve Davis, we've got a new director come in just literally in the last couple of weeks, who shares exactly the same sentiment as the minister does. That is, he's a Welsh speaker. He learned to speak Welsh in a Welsh medium school as a child in the valleys. And he's come to us and reminded the senior team without any ambivalence whatever that this is a significant government priority. So what a great place it is for that report to land. So secondly, I'd say if we just go through, and you've mentioned one of them already, if we just go through some of the enablers for the change that this report calls on, the first you've already mentioned, which is a new curriculum. The new curriculum doesn't just put 4 purposes at its centre. It doesn't just put a new approach to pedagogy at its centre. It puts Welsh identity and Welsh language at its centre as well. And you'll have heard me talk about that a good number of times over the last couple of years, about how proud we should be of us as a small nation, of the ambition we have to be globally recognisable for what we are, which is Welsh. And that's a significant feature in the new curriculum. Third thing I'd reference is professional learning. I would say this, wouldn't I? Because this professional learning is in my portfolio, just as the Leadership Academy is. And I've literally been in meetings today talking about how we can achieve this ambition through greater investment in professional learning and looking at how we do professional learning across the system and speaking to regions about the work that they do in that context. Fourth thing I'd say is about, I guess, teacher recruitment. So we do have a job of work to do to increase the number of teachers we recruit into initial teacher education, because that's the pipeline for our future teachers. And we are developing a 10-year plan with the Minister as we speak that will take a view beyond initial teacher ed into our universities and even into our sixth forms, and how we use that energy that is available across the entire system to radically improve the number of young people we bring into the teaching profession who can teach in Welsh medium schools or who can teach Welsh in English medium schools. That's all part then in turn, something you'll hear about a little bit more later on, which is the strategic planning approach to growth in provision. So we have significant plans for growth in provision. Obviously, these have to be staffed, hence the reference to initial teacher ed, and they have to deliver a curriculum that is vibrant and engaging and enjoyable for children, which kind of brings me on to my last point, which is to answer the question, the role of leadership. You'll see that the report references the role of leadership at system level. So our minister, our director, ourselves as the senior team in Welsh Government have a significant role to play in leading policies that lead to growth in Welsh medium provision and improvement in the quality of all teaching, but specifically in this context, teaching of Welsh in English medium schools. Secondly, at that other level of leadership, support for the system, we have a significant range of support through our regions, through Estyn, through our universities, to that range of support that is available in professional learning and leadership terms to our teaching and leadership community. And we should not forget the role, and indeed the report doesn't forget the role that they play. And then finally, in something that the report is less verbal on, but I know will be taken up by the Academy and by associates, is the role of leadership in school. There's a job of work to do to lead schools, whether they're Welsh medium schools or whether they're schools with in the English medium with Welsh taught as a subject. And that is where it all happens, right? You know, you've heard me say this before. It happens in the head teacher and senior leadership team's offices, that you shape pedagogy in your school, you shape the cultural approach to Welsh language and Welsh identity in your school. And with our support, hopefully, and with the support of the middle tier, as it's referenced in this report, this is where the work is being done. And so my final comment is to say, you know, well done to you on that work that you do, and I look forward to supporting our new minister and our new director in focusing on this area over the coming programme for government. Thank you.
Llawn da pawb. Thank you for listening to us today. I know you've had a whistle-stop tour there, and I do hope you've all had ample opportunity prior to this meeting to have a really good look at our commission. We're about to send you off to breakout rooms to discuss what you've heard and what you've read, and to pose some questions in readiness for the question and answer panel. So what we'd like you to consider are the key messages and questions that you're taking from the Commission report, as well as what opportunities and challenges the report offers to educational leadership. We'd also like to know what, in your view, would constitute progress of this report in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and what will be your institution's role in achieving that progress. It's a lot to ask. You've not got much time to do it. If you also have any specific questions that you'd like us to ask the panel, then we'll be happy to do on your behalf. Just to remind you that Charlotte has already sent you the Jamboard, but the link is still in the chat. We really do value your opinions and we value your questions, and they will form the basis of further discussions and work by the associates. They're anonymous, so please make your contributions, and we'll make this a really, really positive experience for us all. Diolch yn fawr.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kelvin Law. I am an associate from Cohort 2, and it's my job to facilitate the Q&A. Before we start, thanks for the stuff posted on the Jamboards. Very interesting, and I think we'll plough through some of those and see if we've got some questions. Introduce you to the panel first of all. So on my left, on screen right, we've got Beth and Webb, who's Deputy Director of the Welsh Language Division at Welsh Government. It says in your little bit of a bio here, Beth, that you're very active in the Welsh social life in the capital. I'm not sure what that actually means. Is that just on weekends, or is that?
I'm not quite sure what that means either.
Okay, and I've also got Professor Richard Barwell. Richard's, as I say, joining us from Ottawa, live from Ottawa, and Richard helped facilitate the visit of the associates when they went to Ottawa and did some in-depth study there of the work that was going on. So welcome, Richard. And in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, I've got Dr. Suzanne Sargent. Suzanne is also a associate from Cohort 2, currently head teacher at Pencoed Primary School in Bridgend. Okay, so I'm hoping now we've got some questions coming through from associates, and I thought we might be absolutely non-random and run through and start with breakout room 1, if that was possible. Who's in breakout room 1? Roger, do you have a question for us from breakout room 1?
Sorry, I got there in the end. Picked up a few points, actually, if it's a direct question, but simplifying of the systems across the middle tier, how was this going to happen and what is it going to look like? That was one. I'm not sure that's an easy one just to answer straight away, but that was one. And then actually, how are the EWC? They were concerned about how are they going to support to make sure the pipeline continues and make sure that there's enough provision, if you like, in the system to bring about the ambition. Otherwise, you can have a so they were the two. I let you know. You've got to come to choice there now with 2 points.
Do you want to pick that up and give us some answer? Bethan?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear the question. Can you?
So there was a little bit about how do we get a pipeline of people coming through who are qualified to deliver, and also something about the synergy, I suppose, in that middle tier about where we're going.
Yeah, well, this obviously policy area is led by Kevin Palmer in Welsh Government. If I deal with the ITE question first, I think that was your pipeline question. There are a raft of initiatives that are being done at the moment, and I think some have had great successes, like the route into work. So targeting primary school teachers in a 3 to 18 school to become secondary teachers if they can't recruit in the secondary. So the conversion course from primary to secondary and the route into work, into teaching from employment as well, in partnership with the Open University. So there's some really exciting initiatives. We're at a very early stage with them, so they haven't been evaluated. But of course, you know, the best way to get a supply of teachers is to get them into teacher training courses in the first place. My understanding is that figures are slightly up this year. It could be as a result of COVID rather than a longer term trend, but we need to do more, don't we, to try and make the teaching profession attractive to our young people. I think it's a UK culture. I've worked on the continent a lot in my life, and I think, you know, we've had these discussions. The teaching profession, I guess, is viewed differently in certain countries. I think we value, you know, there used to be some kind of hierarchy that if you're a solicitor or an accountant, is that a better job than a teacher? So there's all kinds of these strange things going around, but I think it's kind of the UK culture. I don't know if there are so many jobs and exciting jobs on offer that pupils think they want to, you know, spread their wings and try different things first, and that teaching isn't an attractive job. I think we've had discussions internally with policy leads, and I don't think there is no magic wand. There are no silver bullets. I think we have to have a raft of programs, but we do need to target the pipeline, and I think we need to talk up teaching generally in society, because it comes from within. You know, we need to aspire people in primary schools to want to be teachers again, because isn't this the best profession? Isn't this what you can do? You know, if you're a teacher, you know, if you're a young teacher, then you have the summer off, you could go exploring, you could learn new things, you know. So I think as we need to change the discourse in society and make teaching great, we need to kind of persuade our young people coming through the system. So, for example, Coleg Cymraeg Genedlaethol, from a Welsh medium perspective, goes to schools to talk about future careers and studying through the medium of Welsh and HE. So we need those kinds of people that go into schools to inspire and to remind people that teaching is a profession. And I think we've just got to keep going with those different things. But as you said, having synergy between the programs is essential, isn't it? Because what we don't want are 20 different initiatives and that they don't speak to each other. In terms of synergy between the middle tier, I can only speak from my experience. I do think that accountability for Welsh as a subject sometimes can seem confusing, because from a planning school perspective, the local authority leads and as a team that delivers the West, we have a very strong link with the local authorities in terms of planning provision. We also link with the consortia, of course, but then the schools are in the middle, and potentially my division, we don't share enough information with school head teachers. So we're not sure in terms of accountability in the system, how sharing that information happens routinely, because our main connection is with a local authority.
Thanks, Beth, and thank you very much. I'm mindful of the fact we haven't got much time.
Sorry.
No, thank you very much. Breakout room 2, Ian, do you have a question for us?
Thank you, Kelvin. Yeah, I mean, we had a really interesting discussion and kind of review of lots of things within the Commission report. But I think one thing that came out of that discussion, which was really interesting, was just a question around leadership development, and how we go about developing leadership skills. But I guess also, the mindset of leaders in moving the profession forward as a whole, in the context of Welsh language and Welsh culture. So I just wonder if the panel have got any thoughts on how we can develop that moving forward.
Richard, what's your experience been in?
Yeah, thank you, Prinaw and Dabao, and great to be here as a proud graduate of the University of Aberystwyth PGCE program almost 30 years ago. I'm Dean of a Faculty of Education that offers teacher education in both official languages, English and French. So, I'm bringing that kind of perspective, some similarities, some differences. So in terms of the question, I think one thing we're looking at, and this goes back to the previous question as well as making the profession more attractive, is innovating in the teacher education programs. So just this morning, I welcomed a cohort of 100 students who are starting a part-time online teacher education program in French, which is the minority language. And the way that program is set up, those students will be allowed to teach and be paid to teach by January. So they have to do a certain amount of the program, but once they get that far, they get a provisional certification, and that alleviates the cost of the program for them. Another innovation that we're working on is creating a teacher education program that results in a master's qualification. And one reason for that is exactly to build leadership early, because we in French, we have a huge shortage of teachers, very similar problem. And that means you get a shortage higher up the pyramid, right? There's a shortage of people for school leadership and so on. And so by developing a teacher education program that leads to a master's qualification, we're building the leadership capacity much sooner, and those folks can move into school leadership much more quickly. So that's two thoughts.
Fascinating. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kelvin, sorry, can I just come in there from the sort of Commission point of view? So just both of the questions so far have rightly focused on the sort of the how and the what, and the detail, I suppose, of what's coming next. And from our point of view as associates, what we found through our connections, through obviously talking with colleagues, from our own understanding, from looking at the data, was that we were sort of, lots of questions were being raised. We were very conscious, we wanted to answer them, because as head teachers, we're very sort of solution focused, but rightly so. I think we deliberately didn't put too much detail about what a solution could be, because that involves everybody in the system, and we are sort of aware that from the launch and moving forward, we now engage with everybody to see, how this will work, what the wider implications are. So whilst it may be frustrating today to think, oh, well, actually, what is the detail? That was something that we thought very carefully about, and we deliberately said, well, actually, these are all of the questions that we ourselves are struggling with, but it's for all of us to sort of come together to think of the best solution forward.
Thanks, Suzanne. Really important point there. Breakout room 3, Karen.
Oh, hi, thank you, Kelvin. Hi, yeah, really good discussion in our breakout room, and actually really positive feedback around the presentation and the way that's been presented. So, sharp, simple structure, easy and accessible to be used. And we had, Estin, further education but lots of discussion around sort of, you know, how do we aid the progression to the next level? What do we do then in order to then, you know, we talked about the fact that we needed to be sure about a continuum and about, you know, where we sat within that language. And yes, we didn't want just bod in dosbarth un, we wanted it, you know, we needed to see that progression. But where do the panel see that next level of that journey beyond school, beyond education, and into the wider workplace?
Okay. Richard, what again?
Yeah.
Throw it back to you. Similar
One,
kind of experience, I guess.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, nice. So nice to see familiar faces as well. But, one thing that really jumps to mind is building a broader coalition. So this is a challenge. I don't think we've figured this out in Ontario, but you know, if minority language, so Welsh medium or French medium in Ontario, is seen as a kind of niche, you know, specific community with a particular kind of profile, the rest of the population just kind of ignores it. It's there, they're going to go, oh, okay, that's cool, but they're not supporting it, they're not, you know, buying into it and encouraging. We've made some progress in Ontario with French immersion programs, but those, you know, they have their issues as well. So another aspect to this that I did want to bring in is in terms of inclusion generally. Okay, so what's your image of a Welsh speaker? And as you know, we have migration. In Canada, we have Indigenous communities. How do we learn to bring those people in, you know, and see them as Welsh speakers or French speakers? You know, I've seen stories in the news of Black Welsh citizens having people speak Welsh in front of them because they assume they don't speak Welsh, but they do. So often there's this assumption that, you know, that you look a particular way if you're going to speak Welsh, and we've got to broaden that coalition and lead for equity and inclusion.
Okay, thanks very much. Have we got time for one more? I think if we brief Trevor in breakout room 4.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Sarah Kelvin was going to be able to come in with the question from our particular group. So I don't know if Sarah is available and about, ready for with the question.
Yeah, I'm here. Very similar themes to those that have been discussed before. Questions are, how are we going to bring IT into the mix, and a recognition of the variance that exists in every area of Wales in terms of the community standard of language, and also asking on a reflection of all the work that's gone on so far with regards to 1 million Welsh speakers. How do we know how well are we doing? Is that still a target? Is there an evaluation of all the work that's gone on thus far that could feed into our commission and towards the next steps? But one of the solutions, sorry, Suzanne, but one of the solutions that was brought forward was reference to the Catholic sector. And in the Catholic sector in Wales, if you want to teach in the Catholic sector, you have a specifically trained person who is employed and highly qualified to drive the initiatives and to ensure consistency and excellence. And is that something that could be considered to flatten out perhaps those differences across Wales that we experience in so many different areas of our culture? And is that something that could therefore be employed to drive the national approach? So it's nice to have an answer, but I know that wasn't our remit.
I'll save the really tricky question till the end. Beth, do you want to come in with that at all? Have you got any thoughts? Or
yeah, I can just briefly, I know that the clock's ticking on Gymraeg 2050. So we have evaluated at a high level the first 4 years of the strategy. So the focus for us obviously was early years, because obviously we want to feed the system. So the earlier you have some connection with the language, the better your journey is. Although if you have late immersion and other types of provision, then you can access immersion or Welsh medium education at any point. So even though the pandemic happened, all our Cylchoedd Meithrin, the 452, remained open, and another 40 opened over the over the course of the last 4 years. So we're on target to open 60 more, and we're going to place those strategically, and we're going to initiate programs like Welsh for the Family, so that we bring the whole family, the whole community into learning, so that people understand better in terms what they get. As I said, I think we need to change the discourse as well, because I think there's still misnomers in terms of what Welsh medium education is. There are still some parents who believe you don't learn English to any standard in a Welsh medium setting. So there's a lot of work to do around that. In terms of our targets of expanding Welsh medium education, obviously COVID has stalled things somewhat, but the green shoots coming through the reception classes show that there has been a slight increase. So we are on target. You know, we've been heartened by the support during COVID, actually. And if you remember, there was quite a lot of press saying, you know, that Welsh medium is not good. If you come from a non-Welsh speaking home, and that COVID exacerbates and showcases that. Well, actually, you know, we've learned a lot ourselves from COVID, and parents still put their faith in the system. So you know, so that's heartening. And there's been some good practices in terms of all the late immersion centres that we can learn from, and you know, tools like Addysgol. If we can't recruit teachers, then Addysgol is a good tool to try and fill the gaps and share. And also in terms of inclusion, Gwynedd actually, as a county, has the highest number of ethnic and Black speakers, because obviously you don't choose English or Welsh medium in Gwynedd. You go to the local community school as a primary school, and as a result, there are more speakers. But shall I stop there, because I can?
Thanks very much. I'm very mindful of the time. You know, I know there are other questions being posted in the chat and on the Jambo, so thanks very much for those. Huge thanks to the people in the panel. Thank you, Beth, and thank you, Richard. Thank you, Suzanne.
Yeah.
I'm just going to whip it over to Ian. I think you're next, Ian. Thank you.
Diolch, Calvin. Thanks very much indeed. It just falls to me really just to just to focus on our next steps and what we're considering doing moving forward, kind of in response to the work that we've done so far and the things that we've heard this afternoon. So as Trevor said at the very beginning, we very much see this as the start of a conversation rather than the end of a piece of work. We're very much looking to develop a constructive and positive way forward for the profession as a whole from the start point of our commission report, I think. And although our identified actions are focused around the middle tier and policymakers, we absolutely recognise that there's much for us all to do in the context of a unified and national approach to Welsh language and culture in education, as well as its application to the curriculum for Wales, as many people have mentioned in discussion and breakout rooms today. I think it's really clear to all of us that what we want to do from this point is to stimulate that further discussion and dialogue and perhaps investigate possible areas for additional research. And it's interesting as we consider holding a national conversation on some of the actions that we've identified. To hear, Beth Ann talking about, talking up teaching as a profession. I think that's absolutely something that we want to get involved in. I can see, some points and questions in the chat about developing the will as well as the skill. And again, just getting involved in that sort of national conversation through possibly through a roadshow of some description, through engagement with other stakeholders and other leaders in schools, as well as the wider educational leadership. I think what one thing that we've looked at and thought about is developing our vision further, and obviously key milestones in this work through a collaboration with key stakeholders in Welsh Government and the middle tier, and amongst educational leaders in a wider context. It's a really fantastic opportunity for us that the new Minister for Education also has the portfolio for the Welsh language as well. We want to continue that debate and dialogue in investment for professional learning, as Kevin mentioned earlier on, including a pathway for language acquisition, We'd want to look at a number of ways of developing the approach of school leaders. Some people have been talking about the MP2H this afternoon, and other pathways that are already endorsed by the Leadership Academy. And again, we've talked this afternoon about teacher recruitment for the Welsh medium and those who have the Welsh language, who'd want to work in the English medium sector and move that forward. So much to do and much for us as a cohort to get involved in. We feel that this piece of work is the voice of the second cohort of associates, but we hope that it is also representative of the voice of the profession. And our aim is clearly to make sure that this develops further to support educational leaders in realising the vision of a Wales of vibrant culture and thriving Welsh language. So thank you very much indeed, diolch, and I'm going to hand back to Trevor, I think.
Yeah, thank you, diolch yn fawr. I'll finish today's launch through the medium of Welsh. A mae'n disgyn i fi ddiolch yn fawr iawn pnawn yma i nifer o bobl. Gaethai y gyntaf diolch yn arbennig i'n cyfranwyr ni, nid yn unig o'r grŵp cymdeithion, ond hefyd yn arbennig iawn i Kevin Palmer, Beth Webb a Richard Barwell, pob un wedi cytuno i ymuno gyda ni i rannu chydig o'i myfyrdodau ac adlewyrchiadau nhw mewn perthynas gyda'r comisiwn yma. Hefyd yn awyddus i ddiolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd gynulleidfa sydd wedi ymuno gyda ni prynhawn heddiw, wirioneddol yn gwerthfawrogol o'r amser ydych chi wedi rhoi i wrando ar yr hyn sgynnon ni i rannu gyda chi, ond y fwy na hynny, eich parodrwydd chi i fod yn rhan o'r drafodaeth hynny ac yn edrych ymlaen wrth gwrs i gynnal y trafodaethau hynny dros dyddiau, wythnosau a misoedd nesaf. Dwi'n awyddus i ddiolch i'r Academi, y bwrdd, y prif weithredwr, y staff, am y cefnogaeth, am yr arweiniad ac am yr hwb ar fwy nac un achlysur i ni barhau gyda'r gwaith arbennig yma. A un neges benodol arbennig iawn i Charlotte, rhan o'r tîm yr Academi sydd wedi bod yn rhyfeddol yn ei chefnogaeth ato ni ar yr ochr cyflwyniadol a technolegol, yn helpu ni i lenwi bylchau dealltwriaeth a gallu falle sgynnon ni fel arweinwyr ysgolion ddim ohonyn nhw. Felly gwerthfawrogi hynny yn fawr iawn. Ac gyda hynny hefyd, wrth gwrs, da ni diolch i Ffô Cymru. Ffô Cymru wedi bod yn wych i weithio gyda ynglyn â lawnsiad yr comisiwn a'r adroddiad interactif da chi gyd wedi derbyn. Da ni'n diolch i bawb sydd wedi cyfrannu i'r broses o ddatblygu'r comisiwn, pob trafodaeth, pob cyfarfod, pob ymateb i e-bost, boed yn arweinwyr lleol, cenedlaethol, rhyngwladol, da ni wirioneddol wedi gwerthfawrogi hynny. Ac ar ben hynny, neges uniongyrchol i Richard ac hefyd i Iasownau o Gwlad y Basg a Ottawa am eich cefnogaeth chi a'r croeso arbennig eithon ni wrth i ni ymweld â'r gwledydd hynny fel rhan o'r gwaith ymchwil yma. Wedi bod yn greiddiol i ddatblygiad yr comisiwn yma sydd ganddon ni heddiw. Diolch yn fawr iawn yn ola ac yn fwyaf gyda un bersonol i'r cymdeithion. Mae o'n wir i ddeud bod ni wedi datblygu perthynas wirioneddol arbennig dros y 2 flynedd wrth i ni wneud hyn, a dwi'n ffodus iawn o galw pob un ohonyn nhw yn ffrindiau arbennig o dda erbyn hyn. Mae yna 2 enw dwi'n awyddus i enwi sydd wedi bod yn wirioneddol rhagorol wrth ddatblygu y comisiwn yma dros y flwyddyn dwytha yma. A'r pobl hynny yw Ian Gerard sydd wedi newid siarad gyda chi, waith o ar yr ochr cydweithio, ar yr ochr cyflwyniadol ac hefyd o roi'r adroddiad at ei gilydd wedi bod yn allweddol, ac ar yr ochr arall Suzanne Sargent. Suzanne hefyd wedi bod yn arbennig o ran yr gwaith ymchwil, cynllunio a trefnu ar yr ochr hynny. Pawb wedi gweithio yn ofnadwy o galed, ond y 2 hynny'n arbennig wedi bod yn gymorth mawr wrth gydlynu'r gwaith yma. Carreg filltir yw hwn. Carreg filltir ar y daith. Mysg nifer fawr o gerrig filltir fydd yn ei lle dros y cyfnod nesaf. Edrych nôl ar yr hyn sydd eisoes wedi gyflawni, ond mae yna llawer iawn mwy i wneud. A fel ddwedodd Ian yn gynharach, dyna yw'r nod, dyna yw'r targed rwan. Sut ydyn ni'n symud hyn yn ei blaen? A dwi'n ymwybodol, mae gyda'n gilydd fel arweinwyr addysgiadol sydd yma heddiw, a rhai eraill sydd yn y system hefyd, dyma lle gallwn ni barhau i ddatblygu gweledigaeth o Gymru a ddiwylliant bywiog lle mae'r Cymraeg yn ffynnu. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd, gwerthfawrogi.